Greetings, Team DPS. Welcome to this special edition of the Marrero Moment. And we are celebrating Women's History Month. And today we have a very special guest. You may recognize her, Trena Marsal. Trena is our Chief of Operations here at Denver Public Schools, and she is our first repeat guest.
All right.
High five. Thank you, Trena. Trena was appointed as Chief of Operations on February 1st, 2023. Her career has spanned more than 23 years with us at Denver Public Schools, including serving as the Executive Director of Facility Management the last 15 years before assuming this role. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So, as you know, it's Women's History Month, and I want to make sure that I take time to ask, what does it mean to be a woman in the C-suite? And if you can define what C-suite is for those who may not know what that is. And what's the best way to create pathways for women who are interested in executive leadership? Did you have any influential mentors on your journey?
I think I've had many mentors along the way, whether they were formal or informal. I've had the privilege of being able to serve in different capacities across the district. Coming into my role, even in the executive director role, for example, I feel like I was mentored by the previous executive director. I've been able to sit at the table with amongst other leaders and to be able to observe how they interact in different circles, how to create a strategy and a vision. I think one thing that I would say for other leaders, other women who are aspiring to become higher level executives, take advantage of professional development opportunities to be able to build your skills, to be able to learn. I've learned from what not to do, and I've also learned how to facilitate and build around different capacities of a leader.
Awesome. Well, let's get into your role, your current role as Chief of Operations. If you can explain, what do you do as the Chief of Operations for Denver Public Schools, and how has that transition been for you from Executive Director to Chief of Operations and the scope of work?
Okay, so when I think about, there's two different levels that I think about. One is serving in the C-suite, and then also serving as the Chief of Operations. So I'm leading a function, I'm leading teams around that strategy and that vision of the district, but also being part of the C-suite is helping to strategize across the district. And so it's not just one central function. So just like my teams within operations, I'm able to build across, whether it be an initiative with the chief of schools or the chief of HR or chief of finance, able to come together as a leadership team and strategize on where should we go as a district, not just within the operations department. And to be able to give you and the board and others that insight into how to strategically move forward and build on the strategies that are in place.
Yeah. First, I want to thank you for joining us at our DPS 101. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with that, an opportunity and initiative for you all, parents and community members, to engage deeply and understand the inner workings of DPS. Last month you were our guest, and you really impressed the crowd. They loved not only your presentation, but a lot of respect went in the lift that you have in terms of what happens beyond the classroom. But for those who may not understand how things work in our business, which is education, how does your work support students? How does it support our staff? So the student experience and the adult experience related to the DPS experience, which you know is in our roadmap.
Yes. When I think about the roadmap, and one of the things that I was very excited about in coming into this role is thinking about how to contribute to the student experience, the adult experience, the system experience. And my role allows me to be able to create those environments, to create the platforms for our students to thrive. Not only for our students, it's for our adults. And so when a student stands at the bus stop, the first person that you see would be that bus driver What is that experience that that student is going through with our driver? When you walk into a facility, into the school, does that school feel safe? Does it feel welcoming? How are you embraced by staff? To be able to create that, and for our community members. When you think of DPS and operations and what we're building as a system, my role is critical and my team is critical in ensuring that our community, they see what we're doing, that it's a valuable contribution to their children, to their community, and that we're continuing to work collaboratively with them to build on that vision. I'm from the old school. I think about it takes a village. And so we're one component, but how do we work as a system to connect, to make sure that we're operating succinctly to increase students' achievement?
Not easy. Not easy work, but incredibly rewarding. So that's, I guess, a two-part question I have for you now. What is the most challenging aspect of your job, but also what's the most rewarding?
I think the most challenging aspect is, one, I'm a very transparent person and I'm data-driven. And so I want to be able to use the data to see where we need to make change, where there's opportunities for innovation, where there's opportunity to do things differently. Some things may stay the same, but there's areas where we need to change. And I think the most challenging part is to make sure that we're hearing the voices, but then also as we're implementing that change, how do we bring people along? How do you help our team and the community understand the why behind that change? And to see what is it in it for them, what's in it for their kids, and being able to articulate all of those different components of the work.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something else, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to say that, yes, ultimately, I'm the one who makes a decision when it comes to, let's say, inclement weather, snow days. But it's a shared decision. And someone who's on that call or sometimes in the room with me is this incredible lady and your team as well, from transportation to ensure that our buses can run safely.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, if our schools are ready to welcome students. So in your career, you have focused on equity-based programs, including planning and managing bond programs. Can you tell us more about the two things in particular, the Bond Equity Index and the Minority Women Business Enterprises, please?
Okay, throughout my career at the district, we have intentionally focused around equity. And so the Bond Equity Index was created as a tool and an algorithm to be able to identify our neediest areas across the district. It's also been used to allocate student-based funding, but I'll focus on how we've used it within the bond program. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the resources that students need for success, and that we are also targeting the right actions and strategies for those particular schools. So we've created an algorithm that looks at that school percent of high poverty, English language learners, the SPED, and the volatility of the student population in that school. And so we use that, and we look at the district average and come out with a formula. And based on that formula, we allocate, even when we prioritize projects within the bond, we look at that algorithm to say what would be the most equitable funding toward these schools that need it the most. And so we want to make sure that we're not continuing to create barriers and to create inequities across the system. And if we're not targeting the highest needs schools, the highest needs students, then we continue to create that inequity. And so this formula allows us to focus in that area.
Equity in practice, equity in action. Yes. Similarly, I know that we have that when it comes to MWBE. Describe what that is to the folks.
So MWBE was a program that we created, and it's actually been in place for over 20 years. But when the program was first implemented, it was more of a program where we encouraged participation of minorities and women-owned businesses, or utilization of minority and women-owned businesses. And so, for example, if you had a prime contractor who definitely has a lot more resources and ability, they were basically being awarded more of the work because they had the resources, they had the bandwidth to be able to manage. And we, our small businesses would, with the contracting processes, they would not be awarded any of the projects because they couldn't compete. And so what we were able to do within our MWBE program was create those strategies to where, number one, minority and women-owned businesses could be mentored. And so we've created opportunities there. We've created a system to where there's goals on projects. We went through a study, a disparity study, of which I was a part, to be able to legally have goals on projects based on disparities that were noted across the district. With that, we're offering more opportunities for minorities and women. We're offering more opportunities for small businesses. We have projects that are more geared toward those small businesses to where they don't have to compete with larger companies. We've also partnered with all of our different the chambers and work with them to see how can we work with their the companies that may be part of the Hispanic chamber, the women's chamber, the Black chamber, Asian chamber. And so we ensure that we're partners in being able to strategize around the work. I'd also like to add that the disparity study suggested a 22% MWBE utilization goal. Our Board of Education set an MWBE utilization goal of 24%. And at this time in the bond, our MWBE current spend is at 30.4% utilization. So we're knocking it out of the ballpark.
That's terrific. Again, equity in practice, equity in action for our students, for our adults within the system, and also those who want to partner to help our district. Yeah. I have one last question for you. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very important one, arguably the most important. It's getting to your why. Mm-hmm. Why does Trena wake up every morning, show up to mm-hmm. work? Why did you choose this as your profession?
And I've spoke to several audiences about my family background, and my dad not having opportunity. But I also think about this community, this DPS community, and the needs of our students, the needs of our school. We think about the equity index, the number of schools that are high on that equity index. And I can't just sit and watch. I have to be a part of the village. I wake up every day excited to be a part, to be able to give, to be able to build, to think of what are some of the opportunities, or where can we create a system and an environment where our kids can thrive. And to be part of that, that's what's exciting for me, that's what's rewarding for me. I have a new 7-month-old grandbaby, mm-hmm. and to think about creating that future for not just the current students, but those to come, their kids, and making sure that we have a system that's equitable. We have a system that they can be proud to walk into. When we think about our employees, coming to DPS and saying that this is a place where I can thrive and I can grow, and they can give their best when they're working to facilitate that learning for our kids.
Thank you, Trena, for coming and answering these questions. I want to thank everyone in our DPS community for joining us for this Marrero moment, and we'll see you next time.